Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Plaza. I'm a Chilean lawyer, animal law LLM from Lewis and Clark, and executive director of the Center for Chilean Animal Law Studies, CEDA, Chile. So today I will be talking about some environmental issues in the exploitation of aquatic animals and fluvial watercourses in Chile. So I will start talking a little bit about fisheries, then I will talk about the aquaculture situation in my country, and after that, about the production of hydroelectric power. So, the dynamics known as the capture of the state by economic power groups or the corporate colonization of politics show us how the wealthy minorities of societies, currently called super rich, manipulate representatives of public authority at their convenience. In Chile, an emblematic case that exemplifies this process has occurred with the fishing law and the bribes made by different industrial groups to various politicians, as has happened with the Northern Fishing Corporation Corpesca, the Association of Fishing Industrialists ASIPES, among others. Basically, these corporations bribed several congressmen to extend to sending them emails with express instructions on how to vote in the Congress or how to answer interviews. And the outcome of this enormous fiasco in Chile was the creation of the Fisheries and Aquaculture Law from 2013, also known as the Longueira Law. This due to the name of the Minister of Economy who promoted this rule, Mr. Pablo Longueira. This law imposed adverse changes in the economy, the environment, and on non-human animals. For example, some of them are the following. The law established more restrictions for small fishermen than for large industry, preventing smaller vessels from fishing in another region, unlike what happened with large fishing vessels. Large industries pay only for the licenses of their fishing fleet and not for the volume fish, which means that artisanal fishermen can pay proportionally more than large industries. Also, it forces artisanal fishermen to share their fishing grounds with industrial fishermen and does not include the recommendations to extend the 5-mile exclusion zone for fishing vessels, these 5 miles from the coast, reducing the catch area for marine products to 1 mile and giving the first 5 miles, which are extremely rich in animals, to industrial fishing, devastating the country's marine ecosystems. But this may be the most interesting thing about this law, that this law established formally that fishing rights of large industry were granted in perpetuity and could be even inheritable. Currently, the law grants fishing rights in concession for 20 years under the pretext of being able to ensure the investment, an investment that was being made since long ago. The outcome of this rule was that the distribution of the fishing quotas finally benefited 7 super rich families with the free exploitation of Chile's fishing resources. And these families have recently merged into 3 large conglomerates, controlling the 76% of the country's industrial fishing capacity and sharing profits calculated in at least $3 billion per year from the free extraction of Chile's marine resources. You can see in this image how the sea was distributed prior to the Longueira Law. You can see a legend here, Chilean Sea, but now after the Longueira Law, you can see the Angelines Sea, the Santa Cruz Seas, the Stengel Seas, the Izquierdo Sea, and all these families seized because of their fishing rights over those areas of the country. According to some official data, particularly according to the state of the situation of the main Chilean fisheries, created by the Undersecretary of Fisheries, one of the main administrations in the area, the establishment of this system resulted in the intensification of the devastation of Chilean fisheries and marine ecosystems. So in the graphic of your left, we can see a gradual decrease in landings caused by the abrupt decrease in marine biomass and due to a prolongation of the critical state of overexploitation of various hydrobiological resources, which is all boosted up by the fishing methods commonly used for industrial purposes in Chile, such as bottom trawling. Fortunately, during the year 2020, a bill was introduced declaring the Longueira Law as undeniably null and void, which was a huge milestone in Chile. And this based on the idea that the constitutional principle of property was violated in the parliamentary discussion process, which was pretty obvious. Today, the bill annulling the Longueira law is in its first constitutional procedure and has already been approved by the Chamber of Deputies. Although there are still several steps left in its approval process, this, in my opinion, may seem or may represent a glimmer of hope that will eventually allow us to reduce the degree of exploitation that we currently exert on the environment and on billions of lives of non-human animals. Is this a happy ending? We don't know yet. I will let you know soon. So regarding aquaculture, I know that Katie and Bianca have already talked about animal welfare issues and environmental impacts of aquaculture, but I will just limit my speech to try to invoke those issues that affect my country. As an example of South America, right? So basically, the Chilean aquaculture was non-existent in the 70s, reached an extraordinary development during the 90s, this due to a spectacular growth of salmon aquaculture. According to some recently World Bank data, Chile ranks 11th in the world aquaculture production and is the second largest salmon producer after Norway. So basically, salmon is the main product of this industry in Chile and obviously is the main victim of this activity. And yes, so what is the law regulating this activity? As we said before, the Longueira law since is the law regulating the fisheries and the aquaculture activity. So regarding the environment and animal welfare, specifically first regarding the environment, according to a third environmental court of Valdivia, on a ruling on seafood against the executive director of the Environmental Evaluation Service, this court stated that the Longueira law is completely oriented to the conservation and sustainable use of marine resources and ecosystems, which means that the Longueira law has a very important environmental end, supposedly. On the other hand, regarding animal welfare, it's very important, it's Article 13F, which states that aquaculture shall provide for rules that protect animal welfare and procedures that avoid unnecessary suffering. While this article may seem as a sort of an avant-garde article compared to other legal systems, it has many shortcomings. For example, it's difficult to determine who has this duty to provide for rules. It may seem that it's a state or the agencies, but it's really difficult to force the state to provide for these rules, right? And also the concept of unnecessary suffering. What is unnecessary in this context? If we take into account that this article exists on a law that regulates the exploitation of non-human animals, on a law that regulates the exercise of this industrial activity, we may understand sadly that many kinds of suffering will be considered necessary. However, this sort of legal poetry regarding the protection of the environment and animal welfare contrasts with reality. The reality is that we have many issues, environmental issues and animal welfare issues in Chile. For example, regarding carrying capacity and fish biomass. Historically in Chile, few assessments of carrying capacity at cage, farm, or fjord scales have been conducted. In this regard, there is an increasing need for a sound productive carrying capacity estimation tool in order to establish the maximum number of fish that can be supported by a specific area and or relevant water body without causing unacceptable changes in ecosystems. And moreover, these very few assessments have been used neither by the government nor by the private sector to limit maximum fish biomass per area, which is essential and crucial in order to prevent from overcrowding conditions which affects animal welfare. Maybe one of the toughest issues we face in Chile in this industry is the use of antibiotics, because in Chile, there are no limits for the use of antibiotics in the control of fish diseases. The only existing controls in this regard review the presence of antibiotic residues only in the final product, in the marketable fish, but not in the aquatic environment intervened by this activity. So, putting this data into perspective, according to an Oceana report from 2018, Chilean salmon farmers are using up to 950 grams of antibiotics to raise 1 ton of fish, while Norway, for example, uses just 0.17 grams, this compared to almost a kilogram per ton. So according to some authorized voices, this has allowed the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria in sediments And there is also an important concern that salmon aquaculture has the potential to increase the proportion of antimicrobial resistant bacteria to antibiotics that we are currently using on humans. And well, we have many other issues. We don't have enough time to do them all, sadly. But for example, the scape of salmon in Chile are an exotic and invasive species that compete with endemic species, are predators. And according to some estimates, more than 900,000 salmons escape annually from salmon farms in Chile, which also poses a threat for human health, since humans try to catch these fish for eat them, and they are full of antibiotics, which are very toxic for human health. And we have many other problems. For example, the eutrophication of coastal and marine environments, the harmful interactions between farms and wild animals, the fish on fish fed, among others. We still have a lot work to do in this industry. And yes, finally, I will talk a little bit about hydroelectric power in Chile. In Chile, hydropower is an important energy source for the country's operation. This energy is obtained by intervening in watercourses and can take different forms, such as dam power plants, run-of-river power plants, and pumped storage plants. To appreciate the relevance of this energy source in Chile, we must take into consideration that the Chilean electricity market is composed of 3 independent systems, 2 of which are fed by hydraulic energy. For example, regarding the national electric system, 27% of its installed capacity corresponds to hydraulic energy, while regarding the ISEN system, 37%. In conclusion, we have more than 60 hydroelectric plants around the country, and for many people, this may be a really green or clean energy source, but the truth is it has many adverse effects on the environment and on non-human animals. And maybe the most significant deterioration here occurs during the construction phase, not only because it occupies the site where the plant itself will be located, but also because it invades a much larger territory. This due to the fact that temporary constructions are required usually. Moreover, during the stage, the air is polluted, heavy machinery produces a lot of noise, the vegetation is cleared, and numerous species habitat are destroyed. However, maybe in dam power plants, the impact is even bigger. This due to the deterioration of the landscape and several other externalities. For example, some of them affect the population living in the floating area. Similarly, ecosystems, archaeological sites, and heritage sites are affected. And according to some recent studies, the rotting vegetation in the water indicates that dams are responsible for the emission of almost 1 billion tons of greenhouse gases each year, which globally represents about 1.3% of the world human generated emissions. Besides the above, maybe one of the most conflicting situations in this regard is the loss of flora and fauna affected during the filling of the reservoir, including small mammals, reptiles, insects, and native flora, some of which are in a fragile state of conservation. However, we have many problems that we have not been solved yet in Chile. For example, what happens to the fish that used to live in the watercourse on which the reservoir is being built? For the moment, there is no consensus or proof of effectiveness at the local level regarding the so-called fish ladders. And in fact, it has even been warned that installing fish ladders without biological criteria or specific analysis of critical habitats and local population dynamics may end up compromising the conservation of fish fauna, becoming an ecological trap rather than a solution. And I just want to finish my presentation, but by highlighting how important is environmental and animal activism in this regard. Fortunately, citizen demonstration and mobilization and animal and environmental activism in Chile at least have managed to stop some projects that would have had irreversible impacts on animal dignity and the environment. The perfect example of this is the case of the Hydropower project, which finally did not prosper thanks to a lengthy legal and media battle, which led to its cancellation in 2017. This project contemplated the construction and operation of 5 hydroelectric power plants, 2 on the Baker River and 3 on the Pascua River, located in the Aysén region in southern Chile. And this project would have clothed almost 6,000 hectares of natural reserves, would have affected 6 national parks, 11 national reserves, 26 priority conservation sites, 16 wetlands, 32 private protected areas, besides 6 Mapuche communities. So yes, I think it's pretty important for us to engage in this kind of activism regarding the environment and animal welfare, because we can make huge changes for the lives of many, many human and non-human animals. Thank you very much.